over the course of 6 weeks, he was able to reverse his diabetic condition. He lost 60 pounds, and all of the additional issues associated with his diabetic condition, the impotency and all that, went away. And we actually got confirmation through blood work later on in the year, just to confirm it. We were brand new to it. We thought people weren't going to believe us. We thought people would think we were lying. So, yeah, it was amazing.
Welcome to Linda's Corner, where we bring more hope, healing, and happiness to the world. My name is Linda Bjork, and today we're going to be talking about how to lose weight and crush health issues for good. I'm delighted to welcome Chris James. Chris is the undisputed king of fasting and the go-to expert for people who want to lose significant weight without loose skin. He is an author, influencer, and the founder of A Healthy Alternative. You can reach Chris at his website, on social media, and his YouTube channel, and I'll include all of those links in the show notes. Welcome, Chris. I'm so glad that you could join with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
I love to learn new things, and I love tools and tricks that work. And you have found ways to help unlock the body's natural ability to heal through fasting, which is not somebody's intuitive go-to by any means. Usually it's, I need to take more drugs. I need to take something. And you're saying, let's take something away. So is it okay if we start with your story about helping your brother who was struggling with some health issues and diabetes and some weight issues? And you just said, all right, let's do something different.
Absolutely. Addition by way of subtraction. That's how I look at fasting. And so my brother was at the time, I believe he was in his late 20s. He might have been around 26, 28 years old. And I had just started learning about the body's natural ability to heal. So I was super excited, had a lot of zeal. And he was telling me that it really, the story started with problems in the bedroom. That's really where, men, we have problems in the bedroom, and we're trying to figure that out. And so, as I kind of probed a little more, I found out that he had issues with his nervous system. He had very poor sleep. He basically wasn't, he had insomnia. He obviously had, dark spots on his skin that you kind of notice with diabetes. And his body was deteriorating essentially. And so, I told him, hey man, I'm doing this fasting thing. I think you should try it with me. And we actually pursued our first fast together. And I want to say that he ended up doing 8 days his first time, and I actually ended up doing 13 days. And we both had amazing experiences. Now, it was difficult fasting for the first time, not knowing about preparation, not knowing what to expect. But one thing I will say is doing it together was like a huge benefit. So for anybody out there who's interested in even trying this at all, if you consider it, consider having a partner to do it with because it makes it so much better. So he continued to fast, and over the course of 6 weeks, he was able to reverse his diabetic condition. He lost, I believe, was 100 pounds. No, 60 pounds. It was 60 pounds. And all of the additional issues associated with his diabetic condition, the impotency and all that, went away. And we actually got confirmation through blood work later on in the year, just to confirm it. We were brand new to it. We thought people weren't going to believe us. We thought people would think we were lying. So, yeah, it was amazing.
Wow. So the first 6 weeks, 60 pounds plus a lot of symptoms going down, including the one that sent him to you in the first place. It's like, I can live with this problem. I can live with this problem. I can live with this problem. But this one, this ED, this impotency, I'm not. That one is not one for me. That's a red flag. That's not something I can handle. And you know what? And that's okay. Because if we have some symptom that says this is the thing that is going to make me make a change, then that was a good thing. Your body's like flipping switches, like what's going to make them listen to me? If we try this, let's try this, let's try this. And you finally get something, usually, and then we think, oh, okay, I got to do something different. So for your brother, do you fast and then do something else and then come back and fast, or how do you work that out?
So we typically, I've created these fasting cycles.
Okay.
So
Do it in a
we'll do
cycle.
over the
Okay.
course of a 30-day period of time, we'll fast for 3 days or 10 days. I mean, we'll do up to 21 days typically. And the 21-day fast is really popular. And then we take a break. We call it a refeed, where you're doing intentional eating as you come off of your fast. That helps make sure that you can let your body re-engage with digesting, like your typical foods and things of that nature. And then what we'll do is we'll go back into the fasting. So if we'll do like a 3-day fast, then we'll do a 1-day refeed, and then we'll go back into the fasting, and that allows you to prolong, these cycles for, months, really, because you're increasing your ability to absorb, and then you're giving your body really healthy, nutritious food, focusing on hydration, so the body works more efficiently, and then you can get really deep healing.
How's your brother doing now? Is he doing great?
He ended up losing, I think, a total of 102 pounds. He became a fitness trainer. And now he's one of my coaches. We have, we host large fasting challenges, and he's one of my coaches. He actually deals more in like the spiritual aspect of things, because I like to attack things holistically. So spiritual, mental, energetic, everything. And I have different coaches that kind of specialize in different areas. And so, he's doing well. We're all still on our wellness journey, always still learning more. I mean, I didn't mention earlier, but he was morbid obese at the time. And, obesity is one of those things that people, I think in modern society, we kind of give people a pass, especially in the United States. There's a lot of obesity, especially in certain particular communities. And we use different terminology. We really kind of try to make it seem lesser than what it is. But, obesity is a comorbidity. You have obesity and diabetes, and you're essentially decreasing your lifespan. And so those things need to be addressed.
Right. And it not only decreases lifespan, but it decreases your joy and your ability to bring in life, to live while you're alive. So it's just kind of a lose-lose situation. And you know what? We
Mm.
love everybody, and we're all about, love yourself the way that you are, and that is awesome. It is awesome to love yourself as you are, but that doesn't mean that we don't also want to make ourselves better. And sometimes the weight is an issue and something that we need to address. I would love, if it's okay, to hear some of the science behind why fasting works. And then I would love to hear and understand there are different types of fasting. We can use a word, fasting, and one person hearing it might think it means this, and another person hearing it might think it means that. And you have so many different types of fasting, and we'll get there. But what is some of the science? Why does that work?
Well, it's very simple. It's really just getting out of the body's way. So the body naturally wants to move towards a state of homeostasis, right? It's always looking to balance and have create an optimal experience for you. So what what we do is we overindulge in basically everything. We live in a really stressful world, and we use food as a coping mechanism. It's part of our societal norm. And so by getting out of the way and allowing the body, because as soon as you stop eating, the body starts to go to work. We use roughly about 60% of our daily energetic reserve to digest food. So you can imagine, if over half of your energy is going towards just simply digesting what you eat, it really limits what the body can do. Not only as far as, healing goes, but also they say that the gut is lined with brain cells. So they call the gut the second mind. And it actually has the capability of processing more information than the brain itself. But the problem is, if it's always dealing with digesting food, you don't get any of that capacity and that RAM that you can use to have better, outcomes in life by the way of manifestation, or just being alert and aware of your surroundings. If you think about animals, animals seem to have like extra sensory perception. They can tell when someone's around or near. They tend to be able to tell if you're a good person or a bad person a lot of times. Animals are flawed just like we are. They'll take abuse and things of that nature, but they tend to be more in tuned energetically. And I think the reason why is because we don't utilize our gut. We don't, that saying, oh, I had a gut feeling. That saying comes from the fact that the gut will actually tell you something. It'll actually give you information about your surroundings. So when you start fasting within the first 16 hours or so, all of the sugar, the excess sugar that's in your system, the body gets rid of that. It's the first thing it burns up. That's why it's just so great for people who deal with type 2 diabetes. And then your human growth hormone increases exponentially. I like to teach what I would consider long-term fasting would be 3 days or more, and we'll talk more about the different fasting styles. But if you fast for at least 2 days, your human growth hormone increases by nearly 2,000%. So for those people who are into athletics and fitness, or if you need to do some major repair work, the human growth hormone is incredible for that. You don't have to go and buy it from a store. The body will make it naturally. During that same period of time, your body starts to shift into ketosis, where it starts to use ketones as fuel instead of, the food, the nutrition, and the things that typically would burn sugar, things of that nature. It uses the ketones, which is it's just like a cleaner, more renewable, it's just like a better fuel. And also it burns fat. So you get this amazing dual benefit of reducing, excess fat stores, and then the body utilizes a more pure, um, uh, efficient fuel. And then, of course, with that excess energy, then it goes to work. It starts healing. And the body is your number one doctor, along with Dr. Sun, Dr. Water, Dr. Earth. These very simple tools together really have the ability, in my opinion, to reverse many symptoms across the board. It's not, I won't say it's like a cure all. I don't believe anything like that, but it can give you the resources. So, in addition to those tools, you also get autophagy. Now, autophagy, when you talk about fasting, that's probably like the most popular term. And autophagy is where the body will actually recycle old dead cells, mutated cells. Um, it goes through this recycling thing. So it cleans it up and then it repurposes. And so you get way more efficiency out of the body holistically. It's better, a metabolic process, it's better energy, better everything. And it's good to do that every once in a while in general to give the body an opportunity to dive into a deep autophagy because we come in contact with toxic food, air, water, dirt. We have to give our body that proper rest. So autophagy is an amazing tool. And the longer you fast, the deeper the body goes into ketosis, autophagy, human growth hormone, and some of these tools that it uses for healing and restoration. So there is an added benefit as you prolong your fast. And maybe we could talk about that a little bit later. But when you're brand new to fasting, the most basic fast is what people will call a dry fast, and dry fasting is no food, no water, and you do it for a predetermined period of time. So it's very popular in certain religious sectors where they'll do no food, no water from sun up to sundown, and they'll do that for a month or whatever period of time. But I like to prolong all of my fasting cycles to get deeper benefit. And so that's your traditional fast. Now, when you say water fasting, it's fasting while supplementing with water. So it's the same thing. We're going to predetermine a period of time where we're only going to consume water, and that's your water fast. And that's probably the most popular way to fast in modern times, next to intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is the same concept where you're going to use water and you're going to fast or not eat for a period of time, but there's shorter durations. So it's a little bit more palatable for people, especially if they're beginners. You can the most popular intermittent fast is what's called a 16/8. I am not a fan of the 16/8, but that is where you're going to fast for 16 hours and then you have an 8-hour eating window. I believe that that is more of a maintenance fast. So once you have done your major work, whatever it is you're looking to accomplish with fasting, then you can fall back and you could use something like a 16/8. You do get to count the hours that you're sleeping. So that's a great benefit. It's when the body gets to do the majority of its restoration and healing. You'll also notice that if you're tracking your weight, you lose the most weight while you're sleeping. A lot of people think the weight comes off through their feces or their urine or maybe sweat, but it actually comes out through the breath in the form of water. So, um, staying hydrated is extremely important with fasting. Getting good rest, getting in the REM state of sleep, your deep sleep, that all bolsters the process. Now, you also have, well, let me say this. With intermittent fasting, I would recommend um, the 18-6 at minimum. So you're going to fast for 18 hours. And if you really want to push it, you could do a 24, which is 20 hours of fasting with a 4 hour eating window. That's probably optimal for intermittent fasting. I'm gonna close up here shortly. There's a couple more I'm gonna touch on. There's so many different ones. You have one meal a day, which is a very fun technique because it allows beginners to, you don't have to focus on your diet as much because you're only eating once a day. So you're giving your body almost 23 hours to digest. So you can eat larger meals. It doesn't, your food doesn't have to be perfect, gives you a lot of more leeway, but you get great benefit from that 23-hour fast. And then lastly, I'll talk about juice fasting, which is a very powerful technique that I actually use specifically to cleanse the system. So if somebody is dealing with something major that they have some symptoms that they want to deal with, and we know need to open up the elimination pathways because they're going to dump a lot of toxins. We'll use juice fasting as a preliminary tool to clean the intestinal tract, clean the colon. The acid from the juice will actually start etching away at that synthetic material that builds up inside of us. You could think of our insides as like piping, just like in your house, your sewage and that type of stuff. If you pour grease and hair and all kind of weird stuff in there, it'll gunk it up. And essentially we eat food that's not real food a lot of times, and it gunks our system up. So I like to use juice to use that acid and kind of flush that out. It also prepares the body for absorption of nutrients. So if you do your juice fasting first, and then you switch to like water fasting, and then you come off and you do like proper nutrition, I recommend whole food plant-based as like the top recommendation. The body is ready to absorb and be nourished. So that was a lot, but I wanted to give you a little bit of everything.
That was a lot. And yet, there's still some types that you haven't even brought up yet, like the soft dry fasting and the alternate day fasting and the hard dry fasting. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to be able to do that. And I imagine a lot of people when they're hearing are thinking, whoa, that sounds really hard. So let's go back a little bit. And you started saying, okay, we're fasting. We're going to talk about, say, this dry fasting. I'm not going to eat food. I'm not going to drink water for a period of time. So how long would be safe? Because if we don't eat or drink for long enough, we die. And that's a pretty bad health problem.
You don't want that one.
Mm-mm.
So what's super safe for somebody who's brand new would be probably about 24 hours. That's a great place to start. We talk about fasting similar to, how you build muscle with your body. You go to the gym. When you go to the gym, you don't start lifting 100 pounds over your head, right? You start with 30 pounds or 5 pounds even, and you build that muscle. So I highly recommend building your fasting muscle. A lot of people get very excited when they hear about the testimonials and the results of fasting, and they want to jump out and just do whatever they're hearing people doing. I really don't encourage that because fasting is a natural process. We are built for times of feast and famine. However, in modern times, we really abuse the feasting portion. And because of the nature of the world, the environment, it's very toxic. When you fast, the body tries to get rid of toxins very quickly. And if your elimination pathways are not opened, if the body doesn't have a place to dump the toxins where it's going to be, irrigated out of the system properly, then it can cause a lot of Headaches. We call them detox symptoms, cravings, and rashes, things that you might actually think that you're harming yourself. So it's very important to do things properly. So before you do any dry fasting at all, you always want to do a preparation period. We usually recommend a week of intentional eating and hydrating before you do the dry fasting. So I typically don't start people with dry fasting. As a matter of fact, I taught fasting for probably maybe 7 years or so. Well, I'll say I first introduced it to my community about maybe 3 years in, and then I didn't reintroduce it again until about 3 years after that. So it's something that I'm very cautious about, even though it's an amazing therapy. It's nothing to fear. You just have to understand the tool and use it properly. Now, once you've gotten comfortable with it, you understand what comes along with the detox symptoms, how to properly prepare and hydrate yourself ahead of time. And there's a whole thing about hydration. People think you just drink water. That's not proper hydration, just simply drinking water. It is a little deeper than that. But once you understand those things, then you could do, 2 days of dry fasting with no problem. And I actually put together a protocol where I teach people how to do that. And the thing about dry fasting is when you compare it to other fasting techniques, that's the grandfather. You're probably going to get the most benefit out of a 2 day dry fast compared to like a 2 day water fast or, intermittent fasting or any of the other fasting methods. It's really, really powerful.
Wow. Okay. So you need to prepare. That's a basic thing. And start slow and let's be gentle. So if you're prepared, and the preparation can be the week of preparing, eating properly, and drinking, making sure that we're hydrated. I want to talk more about that. And also, you talked before about building the muscle. So to just jump in and try to do something huge and major might not be the best way to set someone up for success. So I would love if you would please explain a little more about hydration. So if hydration is not just drinking water, what is it?
Well, the first thing we need to understand is when we're talking about tap water, we're talking about bottled water or filtered water, any water that we get from traditional sources. These are what's referred to as bulk water. And what it basically means is that the water molecule itself has a big bulky head. So you imagine a small cell and a big bulky water molecule trying to penetrate this small cell, it doesn't penetrate efficiently. So what that causes the body to have to do is when you take in H2O, the body has to actually structure it, break up those large water clusters so that you can get water, you can reduce the size so that it can be absorbed into the cells. So hydration is water in the cells. That's what hydration is. Now, this is going to sound very contrary to traditional wisdom, but the absolute best way to hydrate the body is by eating your water. And the way that you eat your water is by eating high water content plant material. Usually fruits are going to be the go-to there. When you do a quick Google search and you could just simply say, what's the water content of a watermelon, right? Or a cucumber or a bell pepper or even a banana. And you'll find different numbers. It's not a perfect science. It depends on, the species of the fruit and the plant, but you'll find that certain fruits or certain plants have more and certain ones have less. Now, what I found is the mass majority of people in America, at least, are dehydrated. And we're taught that at 70% water content or even 72% water content, that's normal, which I guess I would agree that it's normal. But I think there's always a difference between what's natural and what's normal. And when you look at people in more natural environments who like eat from the earth, there's a lot of water in the air and things of that nature. They tend to not be have the same hydration levels as us. So when you have issues with hydration levels, you're setting yourself up for disease across systemically because water is required for healing. It's required for maintaining that homeostasis we talked about earlier. You got to be well hydrated. Your hydration also is what creates your energy, the ATP. So the cells are going to need the hydration in order to generate energy. So if you're lethargic, I used to fall asleep at work right after lunch every day. As a 28-year-old man, I was falling asleep. I was dog tired. So changing my diet, learning what hydration truly was, helped me resolve those issues. I have plenty of energy. I have too much energy. I'm up all night. And hydration is the key to that. So, how do you hydrate properly outside of eating your water? Things you could do to your actual water is you can do what I call sun charging the water. And now, for some of you all who are from the South, you may know about sun tea, where you brew some tea using just water and sun. You put the tea out in the sun will brew the tea for you, and it'll actually, if you're sensitive enough, you could taste a hint of sweetness in it. So what I learned intuitively was that you need to look at water as if it's a living, breathing entity. It is not just H2O. Water has what's called water memory. And there's a whole science around that, and it's extremely interesting what you can learn from water. But by starting to understand that, I realized that water needs to be outside. It needs to breathe. It needs to play. So if you notice, all natural bodies of water, they whine like a snake. That keeps it aerated, healthy, and it keeps it charged. When we drink this bulky water that comes from our tap that has, chemical residue and things in it, we are not only not getting hydration, but we're oftentimes the water is adding something toxic to our system. And that's why we use filters and things of that nature. But the filter is just the first step. Because water has memory, it will any frequency that the water has come in contact with during its current life cycle is imprinted on the water, which is a fascinating thing because you could think of it in a negative light, but you can also think of it in a positive light where now you could start using water and its crystalline structure to store data for, computers and things, chips. And that's something that they were working on at some point. I don't know where we are with that, but that was something fascinating. So by taking your water, you purify it, or you start with the distilled water base. You put it in a clear glass jar. You set that jar outside in the sun, and you let it get 4 to 8 hours of direct sunlight or indirect sunlight, and it will charge. It will ionize the water. It will actually structure the water. It will alkalize the water, and it will further break down any inorganic compounds in the water, and it will reformat the memory of the water. So now you've not only taken out all of the physical contaminant that could harm you, you've also taken out the negative frequency in the water that could harm you. And then it's ready to be imprinted on, which means that you have the ability to then say, okay, you could literally write a piece of like a post-it note on it and imprint a certain desire, whether you want to, attract a healthy relationship or, everybody wants to attract money or health. And you could write that, or you could speak it to the water, or you could think it. And then you would consume the water after that. Now, something that people can research, because I know if you've never heard this at all, if this is brand new, this is going to sound crazy. But I always love to take the intuitive part of what I do and combine it with as much scientific proof as I can. There is a guy by the name of Professor Emoto, and he has a very famous experiment on YouTube called the rice experiment. So you could probably just put in on YouTube the rice experiment and it'll pop up. What he did was he took 3 beakers of rice. Okay. Each beaker had the same rice in it from the same bag. He filled them up to the same amount. He then took water and he poured the same water into each beaker. He set the beakers next to each other, and each day he spoke a different affirmation to the different beakers. One beaker, he said, I hate you. The other beaker, he said, I love you. And then the other beaker was his control. He ignored it completely. And over the course of the 30 days, you see a dramatic difference in the fermentation of the rice, depending on whether the intention was more negative, whether it was positive, or whether it was being completely ignored. And of course, I'm sure you guys can guess the beaker that was spoken to negatively, it rotted and molded and had a foul stench and it was black. The beaker that he spoke positively to, it was fragrant, it was pink, it was beautiful, and it fermented well. And the one that he ignored kind of had traditional molding, green, nothing really special there. And so that proves to you the power of putting frequency into water, how it impacts us. And now, as we take it all the way back full circle, and I talked about how, we're looked at 70, 72% water. In my humble opinion, I think that we actually should be closer to 80 or 90% water if we're in our hydrated state. But if you imagine that you're majorly water, what type of impact will it have? Your thoughts? If you're thinking negatively, what type of impact does that have on your health? What type of impact does it have on your children when you say rude things to them, mean things to them, when you discourage them as they grow and those frequencies stick inside of them? They become what you call them, right? So it's very important that we are intentional about our words around people, especially our children.
Wow, that was fascinating. Here, I anticipated a conversation on fasting, which we are, but talking about the water, we've gone an entirely different direction, and yet it is related and connected. And I have also seen the videos with Dr. Emoto's the rice experiments, plus a whole bunch of other people who have tried to copy and mimic the experiment. And I've only seen it done in as an experiment. I have never even considered the idea of how could I apply this personally to me? So when you were helping your brother and when you're working with people, like even dissolving tumors, eradicating disease, do you use the water as part of the therapy?
Oh, 100%. I actually just had a call today with a lady from Ireland who is dealing with, she's dealing with some major issues, tumors specifically. And we always talk holistically about the issue, the journey, the problem. But with everybody, one of the first things I do is I tell them, well, I ask, hey, what is your diet? What are you eating? What you consume by mouth is so important. It's not the end all be all, right? It's not the answer to all problems. But if what you're consuming by mouth is toxic, we have to stop that. And then we have to start the hydration process. So I'll give people multiple techniques for hydrating their water. Today we talked about the sun water. Obviously, we talked about eating your water. Coconut water is a great tool. I mentioned that to her earlier today. You could also use chia seeds you can add chia seeds, just a small sprinkle. If you ever notice certain seeds, like chia seeds, tomato seeds, they have like this coating, this water coating around it, this gelatin. What that actually is structured water or the fourth phase of water. Many different ways you can kind of describe it. So a simple way to structure or add hydration is add some chia seeds, and then you just drink those chia seeds, and the body will extract that water from the chia seeds.
Fascinating. Okay. Wow. All right. So let's go back to the beginning. Just the overall principles of what you're talking about here is we need to give our body a break. Our body is full of toxins. Our body is full of things that we have consumed. Either we've eaten, we've drunk, we've inhaled from the air, we've absorbed from our surroundings. And we need to give our body a chance to clean it out so that it can heal itself. And part of the process is one, let's give it a break by not eating for a period of time. And the second thing is we need to be properly hydrated, which means something a little additional from my previous understanding. It's not just adequate water intake, it's making sure that the water uh, is usable by
Mm,
our cells, that it's taken into the cells, not just going past them, but going through them and into them. And you've given us some great tools and techniques to be able to do that, like the chia seeds, the coconut water, and then putting it in the sun. And then you gave an extra tip and you can also help give the water a message to flow through your body, which is something I had never considered before. So thank you for giving some very interesting new things to think about, new things to chew on. So, for those people who are listening, if this seems totally and completely new, that's okay. Just chew on it a little bit and see what feels right. And then maybe do it a little experiment and see. So, this has been amazing. Is there anything else you want to make sure that we cover today? And of course, I'll include your links. So, for people who are saying, oh my gosh, Chris, this is mind blowing, I want more, they can come and find you directly.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a teaser. And I tried to be concise. It's so hard. I'm very passionate about it, especially water. But, it's important to understand that the body is not some incomplete device that is full of flaws and needs all of this excess help. It's actually the opposite. We were built in a way that we are complete and we have way more ability and capability than what we're being taught. I think that there's campaigns that are designed to pull us away from knowledge of self and what we're capable of because, there's control mechanisms in this world. So that's the first thing. Whatever it is that you want to achieve, you can achieve it, but it does start with getting your body healthy, getting your mind healthy. I think fasting is a great tool for physical health, but don't exclude the spiritual and energetic benefits that you can get from fasting as well. So if you guys are dealing with trauma and things of that nature, you can use prolonged fasting. Typically, I'll usually recommend water fasting for that type of therapy, but it can help with mental trauma and things of that nature as well. Now, if you want to learn more, actually, what I've done, because once again, I appreciate you allowing me to come on the platform, and I was just inspired by what it is that you've done, and I was thinking, how can I kind of match that energy? And so I created two really special offers for the audience, if I may share that with you all.
Yes, please.
So I knew that for a lot of people, if this is new and you just never heard of fasting, I mentioned earlier the most important tool that you can have, or the most important thing you could do, is prep. Okay. And so I put together what I call our 7-day prep guide, and it kind of outlines what I typically recommend that people do during their prep week in order to start their fasting, so that you guys can have some clear, concise plan, and you're not just fumbling around and you don't know what you're doing. So that's the first free gift that I want to offer to you all. And the second one is actually something that I typically only offer when I work with people one-on-one, kind of like my client that I spoke to earlier today. And it's a metabolic reset call where we talk about your health and wellness holistically. What have you tried in the past? What has worked? What hasn't worked? What do you want to accomplish? And really helping you understand, like, how can you get from A to Z, or at least get you started on your wellness journey? You'll typically find that whatever it is that you want to achieve will change and alter as you progress and learn more about your body. But this is like a deep dive session to, just help get you on track. And so if you all are interested in obtaining those tools, you can find me on Instagram, a healthy alternative, a.healthy.alternative. And then just send me a DM, and you could just add the word Linda in there. And I'll know that it was from this podcast, and I'll offer you guys those free gifts.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very wonderful. This is a whole new world. And that is exciting to me. I love to learn new things. I love that there's more than one way to do things. I appreciate you.
I'm glad I could do that. I love what I do, and I hope that you find them beneficial.
Thank you. In closing, I'd like to share a quote by St. John Christensen. He said, fasting is a medicine. Today, I invite our listeners to experience the medicine of fasting for themselves. See you next time on Linda's Corner. Thanks for tuning in to Linda's Corner podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends to help us inspire even more listeners. Be sure to visit hopeforhealingfoundation.org for free and affordable resources to help you overcome life's challenges. And explore healingbreathworkdetox.com, where you'll find transformative tools for deep inner healing and lasting change. Also, don't forget to check out my books, Crushed, A Journey Through Depression, and You Got This, an action plan to calm fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Your journey to hope, healing, and happiness starts here.